What's going on, guys? And in today's video, we're going to be talking about our Week 7 predictions coming up. Last week, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last prediction video I did, but last week I went 8-6, which puts me up to a 45, 37, and 1 record on the season. And so far, I think I've been doing pretty good with a couple of games. I've been trying to get some predictions right, a couple of things I've been getting wrong, but you know what? We take those. And diving right in, let's just get started with what hopefully should be a decent Thursday night game. We have the Saints traveling to Glendale, Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Saints have been looking kind of mixed bags lately. They let the Bengals come back in the last minute of the game last week to try and take the win. And the week before, they had a shootout against the Seahawks. So I think that they could be doing pretty well with Andy Dalton under center, but they also don't really have many wide receivers right now. And the Cardinals, on the other hand, have just looked bad. They got shut down by one of the worst defenses in the league in the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm just embarrassed for them. I'm going to go with a shocker here. I think I'm going to pick the Saints to win this one. I think that while their offense is kind of mediocre right now because they're out of wide receivers, I think that the Cardinals' defense is pretty bad, and that they could actually stop the Saints. That being said, I could see the Cardinals winning here, but I'm going to go with the Saints. Moving on to our next game, we have the Browns flying into Baltimore, Maryland to take on the Ravens. The Browns got absolutely embarrassed by, I think it was the Patriots last week. I don't even remember. Every week it just seems like they're getting embarrassed unless they're playing the Steelers. And it was absolutely atrocious. They looked awful. Jacoby Brissett is showing why he's not a starting quarterback. He looks really bad. And the Ravens gave up another 10-plus point lead to lose. I'm going to be very, very honest here. I don't have the most confidence in the Ravens. They've been looking really bad lately with that defense, so I'm going to actually go with the Ravens, but I think that this could be a weird divisional game where we see things go wrong for the Ravens, but I'm going to go with the Ravens. Flying into our next game, we have the Buccaneers traveling into South Carolina to take on the Panthers. The Bucs got embarrassed by the Steelers, which I have repeatedly said I was sorry for, Steelers faithful, and the Panthers just got destroyed by the Rams. The Panthers are bad. I don't think we even have to discuss this. The Bucs are going to have a bounce back game here. Brady looks like he's done, but I think he'll beat the Panthers swimmingly. Calling into our next game, we have the Falcons taking on the Bengals. The Falcons played very, very well last week, and the Bengals also played very well last week. The Falcons beat an injured 49ers team, and while I think that they're playing better than anyone could have expected, I don't think that they'll win here, so I'm going to go with the Bengals just because I believe in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase a little bit more than I believe in Marcus Mariota. But I think that this game's going to come down to the wire. Marcus Mariota is playing out of his mind right now, and that defense is as well. But I think while it will be close, I think the Bengals are going to sneak away with a win here. Moving on to our next game, we have the Lions, who have been kind of mid lately. We were expecting them to be very good, one of the best offenses in the league and one of the worst defenses in the league, taking on the Cowboys, one of the worst offenses in the league and one of the best defenses in the league. Yeah, I don't even know who to pick here, to be honest. I think the Lions could sneak off a win here, and I would really like to see them sneak off a win, but I think Dak Prescott's coming back, and if Dak Prescott's coming back, then the Cowboys are for sure going to win. It's a toss-up for me, honestly. I think that the Lions offense is good enough to where they could beat the Cowboys defense, but I'm gonna pick the Cowboys. I think because it's being played in Dallas, or Arlington, I guess. I'm not confident in this one, but I'll pick the Cowboys for this. Moving on to our next game, we have the Giants taking on the Jags. The Giants, one of the most shocking teams of the year, easily one of the best teams so far this season, purely on Brian Daboll. Absolutely swallowed up the Ravens. And the Jags have been kind of mediocre lately. They lost to the Texans, giving the Texans their first win, and then recently have just kind of fallen off. They lost to the Colts, that's right. Last week they lost to the Colts after being ahead a lot. They gave up a comeback to the Colts. And yeah, I did say that I thought the Colts were going to get their comeback game last week, but I think that I'm going to go with the Giants here. Their defense is playing out of their mind. Daniel Jones is playing pretty good too. Brian Daboll is a very good coach, and Saquon is just an absolute monster. So I think I'm going to go with the Giants here. Moving on to our next game, we have one of the most disappointing teams this season for me. That's the Green Bay Packers taking on the Washington Commanders. I don't even know what to say about the Green Bay Packers. They should have beaten the Jets last week and instead got absolutely embarrassed at home. It was just so embarrassing to be someone who likes the Packers and watch that happen. But they are taking on the Commanders this weekend, who are absolutely atrocious. The Commanders are easily one of the worst teams in the league and are currently in contention for the #1 overall pick, even though they just beat the Bears. It's the Bears. So I'm going to go with the Packers here, but honestly, the Commanders' defense is such a good defensive line that I think that they might give the Packers a little bit of trouble. But I'm still going to go with the Packers. I think that they'll just sneak off a win here. Moving on to our next game, we have the Colts, who came back against the Jags last week, taking on the Titans, who were on a bye last week. The Colts have been looking kind of mid. Again, they had one of the worst games I've ever seen somebody have against the Broncos a couple weeks ago on Thursday night, and then they played against the Jags where they had to come back. And the Titans, they're just the Titans. This is a home game in Nashville, so I think I'm going to go with the Titans here. I think Derrick Henry is very good, and if Shaquille Leonard is back, then I think that the Colts defense will be a little bit better, but I just have a little bit more faith in the Titans faithful than I do the Colts right now. Matty Ice looks like he's about to retire. I don't know. This is such a toss-up for me, but I'll just stick with the Titans for now, and we'll see what happens. Moving on to our next game, we have the first Tank Bowl of the season. We have the Texans taking on the Raiders. The Texans, man, they are just bad. They went into their bye week with a win last week, and yeah, they just look awful. The Raiders, on the other hand, went into their bye week with a loss, and I just... again, this is another game where it's just kind of a toss-up for me. I don't know where I want to go with this, but I'm going to pick the Raiders just because I like their roster a little bit better than I like the Texans roster. I'm not confident in this, but yeah, I think because it's being played in Vegas, I think that the Raiders will have a chance here, and we get to watch a Tank Bowl happen. Moving on to our next game, we have a game that I think is going to be a very, very bad game again. We have the New York Jets taking on the Denver Broncos. The New York Jets are one of the most shocking teams in the NFL this year, and the Denver Broncos are one of the most embarrassing teams in the league. Again, the Broncos played an absolutely atrocious game on Monday night. We need to stop giving them primetime games because they're just wasting them. The games are awful. Every game that the Broncos are in on primetime is one of the worst. And the Jets, man, they just absolutely destroyed the Packers. I'm going to go with the Jets here, which might be a little bit shocking to some people, but I think that the Jets have so much momentum right now, and the Broncos are just kind of a deflated team, whether that be because of Nathaniel Hackett's play calling or the way that Russ is playing. Not entirely sure, but yeah, I think that the Jets could actually manage a win here. Moving on to our next game, we have a revenge game of Super Bowl 54, and that is going to be the Chiefs taking on the 49ers. The Chiefs had an absolute banger game. They played probably the game of the year so far against the Bills, even though they lost. And the 49ers got embarrassed by the Falcons. I think because the 49ers are such an injured team right now, I have to go with the Chiefs. But again, the 49ers defense is such a good defensive line and defense overall that I think they'll give Patrick Mahomes trouble. But I think that the Chiefs will just be able to sneak out a win here. Moving on to our next game, we have, again, another overperforming team, I think, and a team that's just pretty mid right now and playing decent and then bad other times. And the Seahawks taking on the Chargers. The Seahawks, like I just said, are one of the most overachieving teams in the league right now. Geno Smith is leading that Seahawks team to an absolute banger of a season so far. And the Chargers, man, they're just... This is a team that I had as possibly a Super Bowl favorite, and they're just not doing anything. They managed to barely beat the Broncos after playing just awful all game. They had a quarterback who threw 57 passes and didn't throw a touchdown. And then he gave Gerald Everett the ball to let me not win my fantasy league this week. I'm going to go with the Chargers here, but I really think I could see the Seahawks pulling off a victory. I hope the Seahawks don't manage to pull off a victory because I just feel like the Chargers are a better overall team. But for now, I'm going to go with the Chargers. Then moving on to our Sunday night game, we have my Pittsburgh Steelers moving down to Miami to take on the Dolphins. This game 100% depends on who's playing quarterback. But right now, sadly, in my opinion, it looks like it's going to be Tua, and if Tua plays, the Dolphins win. If Tua doesn't play, Dolphins don't win. Even if Mitch is starting, the Dolphins have been looking rough these last couple of weeks. That's mainly because of the quarterback play, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins just because it looks like that Tua is possibly going to be starting, and if that's the case, then again, the Dolphins will win, so expecting Tua to be winning here, or be playing here, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. And then hopefully one of the games that's not a bad primetime game on Monday night, we have the Bears taking on the Patriots. The Bears absolutely embarrassed by the Commanders. Every time the Bears step on the field, they just fall on their face. It's so bad. Matt Eberflus is not looking like he's the answer, and he's making Justin Fields look like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. The Patriots, on the other hand, that defense is looking great, and there might be some quarterback controversy with Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. I'm, for right now, going to go with the Patriots just because I think that their defense is a little bit better than the Bears' offense is, and I think that the Bears' defense is worse than the Patriots' offense. And yeah, so that's going to be the end of the games. Here are my predictions for this next week. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys have a good day. Take it easy.